this year I really, I decided, and public school board, if you're listening, I'm sorry, but my goal for the year is to present the gospel fully and clearly to every single one of my classes without getting fired. But the way I see it, if it happens, if I get the chance to present the gospel fully and clearly to every single one of my classes, I'll do what the Lord's called me to do.
Sounds like you're getting already a pretty good reception from the children. Giving out a book the other day.
The one thing I've learned is it's so easy to do.
Yeah.
Especially with this generation of kids, because they see they're starting to see through what's going on in our culture and in our public schools right now. We're peeling away the natural boundaries, that have been. Even just taking God out of it, which I wouldn't do, but there are natural boundaries that we have, and we're peeling those away. And yet the rules at school get stricter and stricter and stricter. My kids come into my classroom, they're not allowed to use their cell phone in the lunchroom. They're one free time during the day, and they come in and they complain about it. And that's such an easy outlet to just plant that idea in their minds that we're peeling away these rules, God's rules, and we're putting man-made rules on top of you. There's a group of people that did that at one point.
Yeah. Who were they?
They were the Pharisees.
Yeah.
It's so easy. And, so I set up my class this year. It's a writing class, which makes it even easier to do this. But, my first quarter, we're studying critical thinking. That's it. And so I present them with a topic and just let the class talk about it. And
that must
and
be
the
fascinating.
way, it's amazing.
Yeah. Wow.
I've had a kid ask me what my favorite Bible verse was. I've had a kid ask me the meaning of life. I just kind of opened up questions to him the first couple of days of school, and he thought he was joking. And I was like, well, I said, well, I can, I know what it is, but I can't tell you that. And they all kind of perked up. I said, it's in the Bible, but I'm not allowed to do that. And every single kid in that classroom went.
How does that work with the rules? So like
if a student asks you a direct question, you can expound, you can answer the question. But I can't just go in and, present my faith.
So this kid said that, but you said I'm not allowed to say it. So he asked you a question.
Then he asked me why, and then it's so easy to do this, man.
So if he opens,
rock the Socratic
he asked me
method
why, and I
time.
said it's in the Bible, but I can't open that up for you. Every single one of those.
So you're not
kids,
allowed to open the Bible in class.
So DeSantis is really pushing to change that, but right now you're really taking your job into your own hands if you do.
Oh wow.
So
even if a kid asks you like.
You got to be careful. Now, me, I'll do it all day long. I don't care. But you are taking your job into your own hands. And I the way I see it is the Lord really opened the door for that job. I'm not qualified for it. I'm really not.
I'd say you're overly qualified.
Honestly. But as far as, the public school system sees it, I'm not qualified for it. The Lord put me in that job, and nobody's taking me out of it unless he says, okay, it's time to go.
Gotta be.
What's what are the demographics of like the students that you deal with? Like, I'm kind of curious, like how many of them are in single parent homes? Or like is it like a majority at this point?
I would say so. Yeah, absolutely.
Father figures are missing.
100%.
So we talk a lot about on this podcast.
Yeah. Jordan Peterson has that absolutely right, without a doubt. But yeah, so I told the kids, and every single kid in that classroom, when I said, well, it's in the Bible, I can't tell you that. They went, well, that's your beliefs. Why wouldn't you be able to teach from that? And that all that does is plant that seed in their minds that this system is messed up. Yeah.
It's like that taboo.
Yeah.
They just love it.
Oh,
I'm not allowed to talk about it. They're
like,
oh
yeah,
my God.
what?
Last year, you can't even mention creationism in school. And
it's almost like they're
and
shooting
so
themselves
are you
in the
allowed
foot.
go ahead, Joe.
So it's almost like they're shooting themselves in the foot, with like the
100%.
whole just not not allowed to talk about it. Kids are like, people wait,
because kids go,
I want to
talk
talk about
why
it.
can't I do that?
Yeah, it's an interest. It's
on Joe
rebellion. It's
Rogan's
that rebellion,
podcast,
dude.
the last one, he's an atheist, but they were joking how like I think Tim Dillon was on it, and they were like, the new, I guess, rebellious thing to do is become a Christian. That's what they're saying. I'm like,
it's
it's
kind of pissing me off, actually.
It is,
Everyone's
dude.
like, yeah, I'm gonna become a Christian. I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's
really?
like-
Yeah.
The only reason why I could tell
kidding.
why the reason why, because people might misunderstand the whole, because when you're being a bad boy or whatever, and you're doing this kind of, fringe stuff because for the sake of it being fringe. It's not, that's
right.
That's not what we're doing here. Yeah, no. I could see why the morals and ethics and the stuff that a lot of people, like we love Jordan Peterson, and he's one of those admirers of the faith. Debatable if he's a Christian or not, but he has noticed and been able to express to people the importance of what this book gives people in order to lead good countries, families, all this stuff. Like it's not something you could put it's the most valuable thing out there. Mm-hmm. So I mean, like that's why a lot of people are getting attracted to it again, because they're noticing like, hey, we've went like a decade or two without this stuff in school. There's been some severe pushback on it, and people are still attracted to it.
Well, and our system's falling apart. I mean, the suicide rate's up, the school shooting rates are up, and there's only one one thing you can trace that back to, and that is peeling the Lord out of schools. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's no way not to trace it back to
like it's a moment for a lot of people. Yeah. It's like when you're standing in class and you have to say under God, right? Or when there's a prayer or something like that.
We do at our school now. Okay, I think that's more of a school-to-school thing. Okay. But we've got the administration at that school is really
one nation
really
under God, indivisible.
He does it.
Powerful line, dude. When you hear that as a kid, you start to. There's those little moments that could dissuade you from doing something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and they're powerful. Yeah. But so are you allowed to talk about like political stuff so like they say you're not allowed to talk about your faith, but give us examples of stuff they say you're allowed to talk about that arguably could be.
So I would say if you and this is I think you can just walk into a school and see this going on. If you're left wing, you've got a lot more.
Got a platform.
You've got a lot more opportunity to talk about your political views. Maybe not like explicitly, but the floor is more open for it.
I just find it absurd that you can't, that they want you to, that as a teacher, they want you to keep all of the stuff that makes you, on the back burner.
Yeah.
It's like, how does that make sense?
It's a bad way to teach.
It doesn't make sense.
I mean, even just from a humanistic standpoint, it's a bad way to teach. You've got to teach from your experience. You've got to teach from your personality.
That empirical.
Well, it's selective.
Yeah.
In what you can't talk about yourself. Like I bet if you recommended them a book that was all about like the LGBTQ agenda, it would be like go forth. But if you talk about the Bible,
Josh, here you go.
100%, I guaranteed. I could do that tomorrow and be just fine. And then I could tell a kid, hey, the Lord doesn't just love you; He loves you more than you could even begin to imagine, and that gives you purpose. And be fired, right? That's how amazing.
You're in a battle, bro.
I can tell a kid,
and that's this is in a red state.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's a good point, Mike. It gets worse.
You can tell a kid, and I've thought about doing this, writing up on. I've got a quote of the week on my board, and usually I use like C.S. Lewis, D.L. Moody, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I thought about writing up there, don't worry about tomorrow, let it worry about itself, Jesus. And just wait for somebody to be like, hey, that's not cool, because there are other people who've said it. And just walk over, erase Jesus, and write the other name and say, "Is it cool now?"
That's it.
And what's the double standard that just exists there is so wide open. So my goal is to turn the education system, the public education system, upside down.
You sound inspired by it.
Well, I think it is upside down. You're turning it right side up.
Turn it right side up.
It's totally jacked up.
I am extremely inspired by it because when I started teaching, my thought was, okay, I'm going to teach for a year and then move, find a church, move on, preach. And when I got in that classroom and I saw that these kids they're broken, they're lied to, they're hurting, they're in desperate need of something they're not going to be given unless Christian teachers step up and aren't afraid of being fired anymore. Then that's when I went, okay, I'm going to do this. I've sold 2 trucks out of spite, and I kept this job out of spite. I mean, I say that as a joke,
man.
But
I love it.
But these kids need it, and I'll tell you, for me, what my conviction is for me to be in that school, knowing what our students need. For their souls, and not give it to them because I might lose a job would be sinful.
I agree.
I really and I've had talks with teachers in the last just couple of weeks about all this stuff going on who are saying the same thing but are afraid to say it out loud.